The final transmission from Outpost 09 reached us at 2:47 in the afternoon on March 3rd, delivered in a burst of static that barely held together long enough for 3 distorted words to scrape through. "There's something here." Then everything cut out. No follow-up, no confirmation, just a silence so abrupt it felt like the continent itself had swallowed the signal whole. My name is Commander Elvan, appointed to oversee a small joint military science team assigned to 6 months of research in the most unforgiving, least forgiving territory on the planet. Antarctica doesn't tolerate hesitation. It leaves no room for second attempts, no margin for error, and it punishes arrogance faster than any battlefield I've ever walked. At the bottom of the world, surrounded by nothing but ice, wind, and unbroken dark, you learn quickly that the cold isn't the true enemy. There are deeper threats, quieter, older. And none of us were ready for the thing waiting beneath Outpost 09. The chain of events that led to that final broadcast began 4 months earlier, long before I realized how far in over my head we were. In January of 2019, I received orders assigning me command of a remote research station on the far eastern edge of the continent, in coordinates so obscure they barely appeared on satellite overlays. Outpost 09 was carved directly into the ice, a cluster of interconnected structures built to monitor climate systems, seismic fluctuations, and atmospheric shifts in one of Earth's harshest testing grounds. The briefing described a straightforward tour, half a year in isolation, a 4-person crew, monthly supply drops when storms allowed, daily satellite contact so long as equipment held. Clean, predictable, clinical. But buried beneath those bullet points was a truth I didn't uncover until far too late to reconsider. Outpost 09 had gone dark before twice. Both times the crews were eventually found. Both times the official files were sealed so tightly they may as well have never existed. When I pushed for details, higher command brushed me off with rehearsed lines about malfunctioning transmitters, degraded batteries, the usual hazards of extreme environments. I should have demanded more. I should have refused deployment until the truth was laid bare, but I didn't. At 40 years old, with multiple commendations and 3 tours in hostile territory, I believed that faced enough chaos to handle anything Antarctica could throw at me. I expected quiet, maybe boredom, certainly hardship, but not danger beyond the weather. I was wrong. Our team assembled in late January at McMurdo Station, the launch point for deep field missions. That's where I met my people. Dr. Ian McCarthy arrived first, a 35-year-old glaciologist trained at MIT, the sort of man who carried an air of quiet certainty and a lifetime of understanding that nature does not bargain. He moved with an analytical calm, eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses that fogged in the cold the instant he stepped off the transport. "Commander," he greeted, with a brief nod. "Glad to finally meet you." I returned the gesture. "Likewise." "You've reviewed the site conditions thoroughly?" "This will be my 4th season down here," he replied. His tone should have reassured me. Experience like his mattered down here. But something in his voice, an edge he tried to bury, hinted at unease he didn't want to name. Sergeant Lena Koval arrived next, a 32-year-old logistics and security specialist, built like the ice itself had shaped her. She carried the no-nonsense bearing of someone who could haul a fully loaded pack through a blizzard without slowing her stride. 2 deployments in Alaska meant she knew cold the way most people know their own heartbeat. Her record was flawless. No complaints, no missteps, dependable in a way that earns trust instantly. "Ma'am," she said, snapping a perfect salute. "At ease, Sergeant. We'll be living in a steel shoebox under 60 tons of ice. Keep things relaxed where we can." She eased only slightly, but her eyes kept moving. Exits, equipment, windows, cataloging everything. That vigilance was exactly what survival required. Private Noah Kim arrived last, 24, newly trained, assigned to Outpost 09 as the final step in his cold weather certification. Enthusiastic, green, eager in a way, bordering on dangerous. "Private Kim reporting, man," he barked. "Relax, Kim. You'll have plenty of time to prove yourself. Focus on learning first." He nodded, but his excitement radiated through the forced discipline. He saw this assignment as an adventure. He didn't yet understand that Antarctica strips you down, and to the person underneath has no illusions left. We spent 2 weeks at McMurdo drilling procedures, checking gear, rechecking gear, and running emergency simulations. Our transport window narrowed daily. Miss it, and we'd sit waiting weeks for the weather to turn. When the skies finally cleared, we boarded a ski-equipped LC-130, a lumbering metal beast designed for polar flight. Loud, bone-rattling, reliable. The first half of the flight was smooth. Then turbulence hammered us as we crossed the interior plateau, the kind that makes your stomach drop and your hands clamp down hard on webbing straps. Below us, the continent stretched in every direction like an endless sheet of white, carved only by robed shadows and the jagged teeth of exposed ridges. 15 minutes to drop zone, the loadmaster yelled. I checked my team. McCarthy watched the window with unreadable eyes. Cavol secured her pack for the third time. Kim tried not to look terrified. When Outpost 09 finally appeared below, small, isolated, half buried in snow, it looked more like a forgotten scar on the ice than a functioning station. A single communications mast stabbed upward like an accusation. Solar panels glinted weakly in the pale sun. The place looked fragile, temporary, and profoundly unwelcome. We landed on a hardened ice runway with a scraping roar like tearing fabric. The ramp opened and the cold slammed into us, -40 before accounting for wind, a temperature that felt like punishment. Welcome to the edge of everything, McCarthy muttered. We unloaded fast. The pilots wanted airborne before the weather turned. The outgoing crew waited at the entrance, 3 men and 1 woman, all hollow-eyed and anxious to be gone. Their captain handed me a folder. All systems operational, no issues. His eyes flicked away as he said it. No issues? I repeated. He hesitated. Nothing worth discussing. And just like that, they rushed for the plane as if staying a moment longer might kill them. Cavol watched them depart and murmured, that was strange. Yes, I answered, but we've got work to do. The interior of the main module felt deceptively spacious compared to its squat exterior, a narrow refuge carved into an indifferent continent. The central area housed the galley, shared workstations, and a small medical base stocked for emergencies we prayed never to face. To the east, 4 cramped sleeping quarters branched off in a row, each barely large enough for a bunk, a locker, and the illusion of privacy. To the west lay the lab, McCarthy's kingdom of monitors, sensors, racks of sample containers, and an entire wall dedicated to live data feeds from the surrounding ice field. On first inspection, everything appeared orderly, efficient, and functional, yet there was an unsettling blankness to the place I didn't register until later. The walls were there. No photos, no personal mementos, no scribbled notes pinned above workstations, nothing indicating human beings had lived here for half a year. It was as if the previous crew had erased themselves before fleeing back to the plane. Commander, McCarthy called from the lab, his voice tight. You should look at this. I crossed to him, studying the fluttering graphs filling multiple screens. Temperature readings, wind patterns, atmospheric pressure, seismic activity. Everything seemed normal at first glance. What am I seeing? I asked. He highlighted a line of small seismic spikes. These tremors, he explained, barely detectable but consistent. I leaned closer. The pattern repeated with uncanny precision. Small pulses at evenly spaced intervals. Ice? Shifting? I offered. Ice doesn't move like this. It's too rhythmic. He hesitated before finishing his thought. It feels intentional. The word settled heavily between us. I wanted to dismiss it as overanalysis, another scientist reading too deeply in the meaningless noise. But something in my gut resisted the easy excuse. The unease grew that night. After we'd finished orientation, unpacked supplies, run diagnostics, and checked in with McMurdo, I lay awake listening to the station breathe. Every facility has its unique rhythm, the hum of ventilation, the creak of metal contracting, the whisper of cold wind sliding along insulated walls. Usually, those sounds fade into the background. Except Outpost 09 had a tone beneath all that, a low-frequency vibration I felt more than heard, the kind that thrums along your bones like standing too close to a generator. It made my skin crawl. I convinced myself I would adjust. I never did. By the end of the first week, routines had settled into place. McCarthy spent his days monitoring ice cores and running models on glacial drift. Koval checked inventory, inspected gear, and maintained the station's security systems like she expected them to fail at any moment. Kim did everything else: food prep, waste management, assisting McCarthy during field sample runs. I divided my time between administrative duties, reviewing the station's logs, and fulfilling the daily satellite check-in with McMurdo. Outwardly, everything was by the book, but the station had begun to behave strangely. Doors jammed without reason. Lights flickered at odd hours. Equipment shut down and restarted without someone touching it. Electrical gremlins, Koval shrugged. Happens in extreme cold. Circuits get temperamental. I accepted the explanation only because I wanted to. The truth felt heavier, lurking just outside conscious acknowledgement. Then came the sounds. Kim approached me first, eyes ringed with exhaustion. "Ma'am," he whispered, "there's something in the walls." "Thermal expansion," I countered. "Metal shifts in this climate. It's normal." He nodded reluctantly. "I thought that at first, but it's following patterns." I logged it, then asked Koval to check the walls. She found nothing. No structural damage, no airflow leaks, no evidence of rodents or settling. 2 days later, McCarthy reported the same thing, scratching behind the lab walls. He recorded it. When he played the audio through headphones, I listened closely, hearing static, ventilation hum, and then faint, deliberate scraping. 3 short rakes, a pause, 1 long drag, 3 short again. 1 long, not random, not natural. "What does it mean?" I asked. "It doesn't match Morse," McCarthy said quietly. "It's just pattern, like something trying to communicate without knowing how." I forced a dismissive tone I didn't believe. "Probably mechanical interference. Don't jump to conclusions." But I saw the fear in his eyes, and I felt it too. That night, lying in my bunk, the pattern started again, this time inches from my head. 3 sharp scrapes, 1 long, 3 sharp, 1 long. It vibrated through the wall into my hand when I pressed my palm against the cold metal. Something was there on the other side, something deliberate. I grabbed a flashlight, woke Koval, and we suited up to check the perimeter. Outside, the wind sliced across the plateau, visibility collapsing into white beyond 50 meters. We circled the station, sweeping our beams across snowbanks and shadowed angles. Nothing. No tracks, no signs of intrusion, no disturbances at all. And yet the longer we stood out there, the more I felt eyes on us from somewhere beyond our limited vision. Not human eyes, patient ones, studying. "We should go in," Koval murmured. I didn't need convincing. The scratching persisted over the next 3 days, weaving itself into the ambient soundtrack of the station until none of us could ignore it. Every excuse we'd leaned on, thermal stress, shifting ice, atmospheric anomalies, grew thinner by the hour. Something was pressing closer. McCarthy threw himself into data analysis like a man fleeing a battlefield. One morning I found him hunched over his monitors, unshaven, 3 empty mugs beside him, eyes bloodshot. "Commander," he said, voice unsteady, "you need to see this." He pulled up seismic data, tremors growing stronger, repeating with mathematical regularity. Then acoustic readings, low-frequency sound waves traveling upward from deep beneath the ice. "This isn't geological," he said, "and it's getting closer." I felt the temperature in the room drop a degree, though the thermostat disagreed. The meaning was clear. Something beneath Outpost 09 was moving. McCarthy's voice trembled in a way I had never heard from him when he told me to look closer, and as I leaned over the screen, I immediately understood why the color had drained from his face. For the past 72 hours, the rhythmic tremors we had first noticed as faint anomalies had grown stronger, more frequent, almost like a pulse accelerating under stress. But what shook me more were the acoustic readings layered beneath the seismic data, low-frequency vibrations rising up from deep below us, too structured to be random, too deliberate to ignore. "This shouldn't be here," McCarthy whispered. "These waveforms don't belong to natural processes. The ice doesn't make sounds like this, not on its own." The symbol-like patterns moved across the graph in perfect intervals. "Where is it coming from?" I asked. He swallowed. "Straight down. Maybe a kilometer or more, and every hour, The source point climbs upward. The room suddenly felt much colder than the thermometer suggested. Upward, I repeated, meaning whatever it is, it's moving. He nodded, jaw clenched. And closing distance. I stared at the data, my breath tightening. Could it be geological, volcanic pockets, tectonic shear? McCarthy shook his head. There's no volcanic activity anywhere near this sector. The bedrock is stable. None of this matches any seismic signature recorded on the continent. Commander, this is something else. Fear flickered through his eyes, raw and unfiltered. We need to alert McMurdo immediately. I agreed without hesitation. But when I tried the transmission uplink 2 hours later, I was met with nothing but static. Communication systems that had worked flawlessly for days suddenly refused to connect. No signal, no handshake, no carrier tone, just a dead channel and an error message I had never seen before, one not listed in any diagnostics manual. Koval joined me at the console, running checks with an urgency that bordered on desperation. She cycled power, reset transmitters, verified cables, recalibrated frequencies, every step precise, experienced, methodical. Nothing changed. Could be a damaged array, she muttered, but I could hear the doubt beneath the words. Could be atmospheric interference, I offered weakly. Solar storms. But there were no solar storms on the forecast. The sky was clear, the winds low, the ionospheric readings normal. Something was blocking us, deliberately. How long until the next supply flight? Kim asked from behind us, doing everything he could to sound calm. 3 weeks, I said. Maybe longer if weather shifts. The realization hung in the room like a held breath. 3 weeks, 21 days, alone on a silent continent with something moving beneath us. We've still got the emergency beacon, Koval reminded me. Last resort. Exactly, I said, and we're not there yet. Whether I meant to reassure them or myself, I couldn't tell. Leaders don't get to panic. Leaders hold the line until there's no line left to hold. That night the temperature fell, not outside, but inside the station. The heaters labored harder than usual, grinding against a pull I couldn't identify. By morning, we'd lost 2 degrees. Not enough to be dangerous, but enough to notice, enough to feel wrong. I woke at 0300 hours to the sight of my breath drifting in pale threads through the half-lit air. The wall thermometer read 16 degrees Celsius. That can't be right, I muttered, pulling on my parka. I made my way to the mechanical room where Koval was already kneeling by the heating manifold, flashlight clenched in her teeth as she checked seals, vents, and insulation. Everything's intact, she said, frustration sharpening her voice. No leaks, no breaches, no mechanical failures. She stood, rubbing her arms. Something's draining heat, Commander, and it's not the weather. I didn't respond, couldn't, because the only explanation circling my mind was too disturbing to voice. If something was taking our heat, then something was close. The storm arrived the next day. It appeared on McCarthy's monitors like a sudden wound opening across the plateau, an enormous spiral of low-pressure turbulence forming directly over our location. Storm fronts don't build this fast, McCarthy murmured. Not here. Meaning, I pressed. He hesitated. Meaning, this looks engineered. The temperature outside plunged while the wind ramped up with unnatural speed, howling across the ice like a living thing enraged. By 1400 hours, the storm struck in full. The station shook under the assault. Snow slammed against the reinforced windows hard enough that we sealed the shutters to prevent breakage. The walls groaned under the pressure, metal twisting like something was trying to peel us apart from the outside. We gathered in the common area, me, McCarthy pacing like a caged animal, Koval cleaning her sidearm for the 3rd time, Kim sitting rigid against the wall, eyes wide. I forced myself to project calm. Inside, my thoughts raced, communications down. Temperature dropping, seismic activity rising, scratching in the walls increasing, and now a storm forming out of nowhere. The lights flickered once, twice, then everything went black. 3 seconds of pure darkness. 3 seconds where the storm outside vanished beneath the sound of our own breathing. 3 seconds where the cold crept closer. Then the emergency lights kicked on in a dim red wash. Generator is still running, Koval reported, checking her handheld. Main power should have recovered by now, but it didn't. The station remained drowned in crimson emergency light, The heating system stayed offline, and the temperature, already too low, began to fall rapidly. We scrambled through the night, rotating between the mechanical room and the command bay, trying every repair trick in the book. Nothing worked. Circuits failed without reason. Breakers tripped themselves. Every temporary fix unraveled the moment we stepped away. It was as if the station itself had decided to resist us. By dawn, the common area temperature hit 8 degrees. We were burning through emergency heating packs at an unsustainable rate. "Commander," McCarthy said quietly, staring at the monitors as if expecting them to burst into flames, "we're not alone out here." And for the first time, I didn't try to argue. The emergency heating packs we relied on, those tiny chemical warmers meant only for brief exposure, not sustained survival, were disappearing faster than we could justify, and at the rate the station's temperature was falling. We had perhaps 2 days before hyperthermia stopped being a threat and became a guarantee. Kim's teeth chattered as he wrapped his arms around himself, voice tight with panic as he said, "We need to activate the emergency beacon now. We're not going to last 3 weeks like this." I steadied my breathing before answering. "Not yet," I said, even though every instinct in my body screamed he was right. Rescue teams can't land in this kind of storm. If we activate the beacon now, they'll try anyway and get trapped. We don't kill pilots to save ourselves. His jaw worked, anger and fear tangled together, but he didn't argue. The storm outside raged for another day, 36 relentless hours of shrieking wind and razor-driven snow that hammered the walls like fists. Visibility dropped to 0. Temperatures outside dipped into numbers that could kill a person in minutes. Inside, we maintained shifts of 2 awake, 2 resting, each cycle blending into the next until hours blurred into something shapeless and cold. During my midnight watch on the second night, the scratching changed. It was louder now, sharper, and it no longer came only from the walls. It rose through the floor, from the ice beneath us, vibrating through the metal plates like something pacing directly under the station. I knelt, pressing my ear to the icy flooring. The pattern was clearer down there, less muffled by insulation. 3 short scrapes, a pause, 1 long, repeated over and over. But beneath that rhythm was something new. A grinding like stone dragged across stone, and even softer, barely perceptible, a humming, organic, resonant, like something trying to form words without breath or mouth or shape. I recoiled, heart pounding so hard it drowned out the storm. When I lifted my head, I found Koval watching me from across the room, eyes sharp despite her exhaustion. "What did you hear?" she asked. "Nothing," I lied, "just checking stability." She didn't believe me, but she didn't push, and the storm continued to claw at the station while the thing beneath us clawed back. When the storm finally died on the 3rd day, the silence it left behind felt heavier than the noise. We opened the shutters slowly, uncertain of what we'd see, and the world outside looked wrong. Snow had drifted into massive, unnatural walls, burying half the solar panels and nearly sealing the entrance tunnel. The sky was an empty, ghostly blue, as if even the clouds had fled whatever walked beneath the ice. McCarthy suited up to inspect the external sensors despite my hesitation. We needed data. We needed answers. He vanished into the pale glare for 20 minutes. When he returned, his movements were stiff, mechanical, his voice barely carrying through the frost coating his face mask. "Commander," he said, pulling off his gear, "the sensors are gone." I frowned. "Damaged?" "No," he said, swallowing hard. "Destroyed, torn out, some scattered 100 meters from where they were mounted." "Wind?" I asked. He shook his head. The mounting bolts were sheared clean through, like they were cut. The implication hit all 3 of us at once. Something had been outside during the storm, something that moved through conditions that would kill any living creature, something strong enough and deliberate enough to tear through reinforced equipment as if clearing obstacles from its path. "Activate the beacon," I said, "now." Koval didn't hesitate. She crossed the room, flipped open the protective case, and keyed in the activation sequence. We waited for the confirmation light. Nothing happened. She tried again. Nothing. "Check wiring," I said. "Run diagnostics." She did, every connection, every fuse, every voltage reading. "It's all functional," she whispered, voice tightening with dread. "It should be transmitting, but it isn't," McCarthy added. "The beacon hasn't failed. Something stopped it, not broken, not jammed. Disabled, with precision. We were cut off, trapped, isolated, and whatever had been tapping at our walls now knew we couldn't call for help. Fear doesn't always scream. Sometimes it comes as a quiet, steady recoil in the gut, an instinct older than language. I saw it take hold of Kim first. On the fourth day after the storm, I found him in the airlock, half-suited, hands trembling as he tried to open the outer door. "Private," I snapped. "Stand down." He whipped around, eyes wide and wild. "I can't stay here anymore, Commander." "Something's in the walls, it's whispering my name." I stepped closer, palms open. "You're exhausted. No one's thinking clearly. Step away from the door." He shook his head violently. "You hear it too. I know you do. We all do. But you keep pretending it's nothing." His voice cracked. "I need to leave before it gets in. If you go out there, you die," I said. "Temperatures are lethal. The wind is rising again. You wouldn't last an hour." "Maybe that's better," he whispered. For a moment, I saw something in his expression I had seen in combat zones. Men and women reaching the edge of themselves. I softened my tone. "Listen to me. A supply flight will come. 3 weeks. Maybe sooner. But only if we stay alive." He held my gaze for a long time, before finally letting me unclasp his gear. I sedated him, settled him in the medical bay, and gathered the others. "We need to speak honestly," I said. "No more excuses." McCarthy leaned forward, fingers trembling. "Something's out there, or down there." Koval stared at the wall as the tapping resumed, 3 short, 1 long, and whispered, "It knows we're here." The truth none of us wanted to say had finally forced itself into the open, and the ice listened, humming faintly beneath our feet. Koval tried to sound rational when she said it wasn't possible, that nothing alive could exist beneath this depth of Antarctic ice, that no creature, human, mammal or otherwise, could produce the patterns we'd been hearing. But even she couldn't disguise the quiver in her voice. The truth was pressing in from all sides, demanding acknowledgement. McCarthy slammed his palm on the table, his composure cracking. "Explain the beacon failure then," he snapped. "Explain why sensors were torn from their mounts, why temperatures are dropping in ways that defy thermodynamics. Tell me how any of that is normal." His voice was brittle, stretched thin. "The facts say we're not alone out here, and something is reacting to us." I kept my tone level, calm, Commander steady, even as fear hollowed a space inside my chest. "What are you suggesting?" He pointed at the scribbled notes beside him, patterns, intervals, the recorded scratches he'd slowed down and dissected over days of sleepless analysis. "It's mirroring us. When we move, it moves. When we rest, it rests. That pattern isn't random. That's recognition. That's intent." The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. Kim shifted beside the heater, arms wrapped around himself, his voice barely above a whisper. "So what do we do if it comes for us?" I forced myself to steady my breathing. "We increase watch rotations," I said, 2 awake at all times. "We document every anomaly, and we prepare for the possibility that we may need to survive longer than 3 weeks." "How much longer?" Ken asked. I didn't answer. I couldn't. That night, everything failed at once. The power cut completely. Not a flicker, not a brownout, just blackness, swallowing every corner of the station. No emergency lighting, no heaters, no hum of air circulation. A silence so absolute it felt like pressure on my skull. And then came the tapping. Not the faint scratches from before, but a sharp, deliberate knocking that echoed from everywhere. The walls, the ceiling, the floor, surrounding us, mapping us. I grabbed my flashlight, flicked it on, the beam trembling as it cut through the suffocating dark. "Mechanical room," I ordered. "Koval, with me. McCarthy, stay with Kim. Keep lights on each other. No one is left alone." Koval and I moved through the corridor, the tapping following us with uncanny precision, always just behind our steps, never close enough to see. My pulse hammered as we reached the mechanical room and found chaos inside. Breakers thrown, wires ripped out, panels smashed open as if something had rooted through them looking for a pulse. The door had been sealed from the inside. No human could have done this. Koval whispered, "Commander, this isn't possible." But the evidence of the impossible surrounded us in the red lens of my trembling flashlight. We attempted triage repairs, fumbling in the cold as we reconnected wires that immediately tore loose again. reset breakers that tripped themselves seconds later. It was like the station was actively rejecting us. Then, silence. Not the peaceful kind, but a dead pause heavy enough to crush thought. "Why did it stop?" Koval whispered. Before I could answer, a scream tore through the station, Kim's voice shredded by terror. We ran. McCarthy stood frozen in the common area doorway, flashlight aimed at the far wall. Kim pressed himself against the metal, clawing at it like a man trying to dig through steel with bare hands. "It's in the walls," he screamed. "It's trying to get inside me. I can feel it. I can feel it." McCarthy tried to steady him. "Kim, breathe. You're panicking. Focus." I grabbed Kim by the shoulders, trying to pull him away. He fought wildly, far stronger than his frame should have allowed. His eyes were rolled white, unfocused. "It showed me things," he gasped. "Things under the ice. Old things. Wrong things. They've been here forever, and now they know we're here. Now they know, Kim," I barked. "Look at me. You're safe. You're overwhelmed. Nothing is inside you." But even as I said the words, I felt like a liar. He collapsed in my arms, sobbing, shaking so violently, I could barely hold him steady. We sedated him again and carried him to his bunk. On the way out of the common area, my flashlight swept over the place where he'd been clawing, and I froze. Frost had formed on the metal, not random fractals, but shapes, curves, angles, symbols, letters of an alphabet I had never seen before, yet instantly recognized as language. Structured, intentional, almost communicative, a message, a warning, or something worse. By morning, Kim was gone, his bunk empty, his gear missing. The outer airlock cycling records showed it had been opened hours earlier. "Impossible," Koval whispered. He was sedated. "There's no way he suited up and left without us hearing him." But he had. He walked out into lethal temperatures as if drawn by something. We followed his footprints as far as we dared, calling his name into the wind. The tracks led straight toward a crevasse, a jagged mouth gaping in the ice. They ended at the edge. I stared down into a darkness that felt bottomless. Koval dropped the flare. It fell for a long, long time before winking out without ever finding ground. "He's gone," McCarthy said, voice hollow, empty, and there was nothing left to argue. We returned to the station as 3 instead of 4, the silence between us heavier than the loss itself. That afternoon, I found McCarthy in the lab, staring at his monitors with eyes that hadn't slept since the storm began. "I filtered the audio," he said, "removed noise, enhanced patterns." He clicked play, and I heard it. The scratching, the tapping, the grinding. But beneath it all, woven through the sound like a thread pulled from ancient cloth, was a voice. Not human. Not animal. Not like anything that belonged on this planet. A voice that bypassed the years and sank straight into the oldest parts of the mind. "What is it saying?" I whispered. McCarthy shook his head slowly. "I don't know, but whatever language this is, it's older than anything humans have ever recorded. Older than human civilization. Maybe older than humanity itself." I didn't speak, couldn't speak, because the truth had finally settled like a weight in my chest. We hadn't stumbled into danger. We had woken something that had been sleeping beneath the continent long before humans learned how to stand upright, and it was no longer asleep. We needed to leave. The moment McCarthy's filtered audio revealed that ancient, bone-deep voice buried beneath the scratching, the decision became unavoidable. "We go now," I said, my own voice sounding distant to my ears. "We take only what we can carry and head for Station Victor, 40 kilometers south. They have independent comms and emergency shelters." Koval shook her head slowly, her breath fogging the air. "Commander, in this cold, with another storm building?" She wasn't wrong. The temperature outside was low enough to kill exposed skin in seconds. The wind had begun a subtle rise that hinted at worse things coming, but staying meant death, inevitable and certain. Leaving meant maybe, and maybe was the only hope we had left. "We die if we stay," I said. "We might die if we leave. I'll take the might." That ended the discussion. The rest of the day passed in near silence as we prepared for the march, packing only essentials, stripping gear to its barest weight, gathering emergency beacon components in case we could repair them once we reached Victor. The quiet wasn't calm, It was the fragile quiet of people who understood what waited outside and what hunted beneath us. As night approached, I stood at one of the frost-lined windows and stared out at the endless expanse of ice. Somewhere out there, beneath the snowfields and black crevasses, Kim was gone, taken by a darkness no rescue team could retrieve him from. Somewhere below us, the thing that had been tapping and whispering was no longer just waking. It was rising. And the scratching grew louder, not intermittent now, not occasional, constant, urgent, 3 short, 1 long, 3 short, 1 long. It wasn't a warning anymore, it was a countdown. At dawn, if the dim gray light could be called that, we left Outpost 09 behind, sealing the door with a finality none of us spoke aloud. 3 of us trudged out onto the plateau loaded with packs that felt heavier than their contents. Station Victor lay 40 kilometers south. Under perfect conditions, well-fed and rested, that would have been a grueling day's march. Under these conditions, starving, exhausted, cold-soaked, it bordered on impossible. We moved anyway. The first few kilometers went better than expected. Flat terrain, snow firm enough to support our weight, the wind mercifully low. McCarthy led with the GPS clipped to his pack. I took the middle. Koval watched our rear, checking the horizon every few minutes as if expecting something to rise from the ice behind us. By midday, the cold had seeped deep enough into my muscles that every step felt mechanical. My fingers were numb inside double-layer gloves. Ice formed on my eyelashes. Each breath burned its way down my throat and came out as a cloud of crystals clinging to my face covering. We stopped only for minutes, crouched behind a small ridge to break the wind, warming ration pouches over chemical tabs before forcing down the tasteless calories. 15 kilometers down, McCarthy reported, checking the GPS. We're making better time than I thought, but I had already noticed the darkness building far on the horizon, a low, sweeping mass rolling toward us like smoke across a battlefield. We need to move faster, I said. We pushed hard, driving our legs through fatigue and pain, but the storm behind us moved faster still. Within an hour, the first wind gusts hit, sharp, swirling. Within 2, visibility was collapsing. The storm arrived like a predator, sudden and merciless. Snow hammered at us from every direction. The world shrank to a few meters of whirling white. The temperature plunged. Koval cursed under her breath. We need to rope up. We clipped into the tether, McCarthy leading, me in the middle, Koval at the end, because one misstep in these conditions meant disappearing forever. Every footfall could hide a crevasse. Every drift could be a trap. The wind roared like a furious animal. Ice tore at my exposed seams. My mind narrowed until only forward motion existed. One step, then another, then another. At some point, minutes, hours, time had no meaning. I felt the rope go slack as McCarthy stopped abruptly. I nearly slammed into him. "What is it?" I shouted over the storm. He raised his light. Through the blizzard, a dark shape emerged. Tall, angular, wrong. It stood unmoving as if the wind didn't touch it at all. "Is that a rock?" Koval called from behind. McCarthy stepped closer. His light swept across its surface, and for a heartbeat I saw it clearly. Smooth, too smooth. As if carved by something not human, covered in patterns, lines, curves, symbols. The same symbols we had seen etched in frost on the station walls, not random. Language. The shape wasn't alone. As the storm howled around us, more shapes materialized, each identical, each towering over the ice, each etched with that impossible script. Dozens, maybe hundreds, standing in a line that stretched beyond sight. "The station," McCarthy whispered. It was built on top of something ancient. One of the structures began to hum, a deep, bone-vibrating tone that radiated through the storm. Then another joined, then another. The air itself thrummed with a pattern we knew all too well. 3 short pulses, 1 long, 3 short, 1 long. The countdown, surrounding us, everywhere. "Run!" I yelled. We ran, blind, stumbling, dragging each other upright, as the storm howled louder and the humming rose around us like the heartbeat of some buried giant. We didn't stop, didn't think, didn't breathe. Just ran until our lungs burned and our legs trembled and our fear outpaced the cold. Eventually, we collapsed behind the ridge, lost, GPS dead, compass spinning aimlessly. "We're off course," Koval gasped. I checked my compass again. The needle drifted lazily, refusing to settle. We were in a white void, directionless, surrounded. "We dig in," I ordered. "Now." We carved out a snow shelter with shaking hands, working blind, guided by muscle memory and desperation. The space was cramped, barely fitting all three of us, but it cut the wind. We lit a single chemical heater, huddled together for warmth. "We're going to die out here," McCarthy said quietly, staring at the slush forming on his gloves. His voice held no panic, just certainty, and none of us could tell him he was wrong. "Maybe," I answered McCarthy, though the word felt thin as tissue paper in the cold. "But not yet, not if we stay smart." He laughed, a short, broken sound that had nothing to do with humor. "Smart? We were smart when we came to Antarctica. Smart when we built a station over something we didn't understand. Smart when we ignored every single warning until it was too late." His voice cracked. "Look where smart got us." "Enough," Koval snapped, though her own voice trembled. "The commander's right. We survive. That's our job. That's all that matters now." But I saw the truth in her eyes, saw the exhaustion, saw the creeping dread neither of them wanted to say aloud. Because some part of me, the part that had felt the ancient presence under the ice, that had heard its whispered patterns, that had watched the symbols appear in frost, knew survival had already slipped out of reach. We were simply slowing down the inevitable. The storm lasted 3 days, 3 full days of huddling together in that cramped snow shelter, rationing the last of our heat, forcing ourselves awake whenever we felt consciousness drifting. We told stories, not to pass the time but to stay tethered to ourselves. McCarthy spoke about his early research days in Greenland. Koval recalled the lessons her grandfather taught her in Alaska, about respecting the cold, about knowing when the land wanted you gone. I told him about my first command in hostile territory, how leadership wasn't about knowing everything, it was about acting like you did, even when the world was collapsing around you. "Did you ever lose anyone?" McCarthy asked in the dim glow of the dying heater. "Yes," I said. "Anyone who leads long enough loses people. You carry their names forever." "Kim," Koval whispered. "His name stays with us." "It does," I answered. "And if we don't make it, someone will carry ours." On the 3rd day, the storm broke like a veil being lifted. We clawed our way out of the shelter, stumbling into a world unrecognizable from the one we'd entered. The ice had shifted violently. What had been a flat, open plateau was now a landscape of jagged ridges and deep cuts, like something had pushed upward from beneath the surface, warping the terrain into unnatural formations. And everywhere, far more than we had seen during the storm, stood the markers, dozens at first, then hundreds, towering spires of smooth black material etched with patterns and symbols that pulsed faintly as sunlight touched them. A graveyard of monoliths, or a city, or something older than either. "My God," McCarthy breathed, eyes wide behind frost-crusted lashes. This isn't natural. This is deliberate. This is a structure, a network. An entire complex buried under the ice." He reached for his camera instinctively, hands shaking. "This changes everything. This proves we never belonged here," I cut in quietly. But even as I said it, I knew movement itself had become difficult. Koval's steps dragged. Her speech slurred slightly as she rubbed at her numbed fingers, the early signs of frostbite making themselves known. McCarthy's face was pale, lips tinged blue. I could no longer feel 3 of my own fingers. The cold was winning, wearing down our bodies faster than our minds could keep up. I had seen hypothermia in survival courses, read the manuals, memorized the symptoms. None of that prepared me for the creeping, invasive numbness now setting into my bones. "Sit," I ordered. "Both of you. Save what energy you have left." "What are you doing?" Koval asked through chattering teeth. I pulled out the emergency locator beacon I had salvaged from the station, the portable one, the last functioning piece of equipment we had. "Trying one last time," I said. "Sending whatever signal we can before." "Before what?" "Before the storm returned, before the cold took us, before the thing beneath the ice reached us." I activated the beacon. A faint light blinked. A weak signal pushed outward, Into what direction? I didn't know. Into what distance? I couldn't guess. Maybe no one would hear it. Maybe someone would. It didn't matter anymore. We sat with our backs against one of the markers, sharing the last scraps of heat from our chemical packs. Above us, the sky was impossibly clear, an endless blue sheet stretched over a land that had never wanted us here. "Do you think anyone will find us?" McCarthy asked. "Maybe," I said. "What will they think happened?" I looked at the marker stretching to the horizon, the carved language, the evidence of something ancient and immense awakening beneath our feet. "They'll say what they always say. They knew what they say was good." Equipment failure, navigation error, a tragic accident. Koval managed a faint, numb smile. "But we'll know the truth. We will," I answered. The cold crept deeper, numbing thought, blurring vision. Somewhere distant in the ice, I heard the humming again. 3 short pulses, 1 long, but it no longer sounded threatening. It sounded mournful, like a regret. We had not been meant to find this place. Had not been meant to disturb what slept beneath the ice for millennia, but we had, and trespassers always pay a price. My last thought before the cold pulled me under was a single fractured hope that the next crew sent to replace us would be wiser. That they would see what we missed, that they would leave before it was too late. But deep down, I knew they wouldn't. Humans never do. Months later, 3 months after our signal, search teams found our bodies where we had fallen. The official report cited equipment malfunction, whiteout disorientation, exposure. Outpost 09 was abandoned, the area placed under restricted access, the markers unmentioned. McCarthy's recordings erased, the evidence scrubbed clean, but the ice remembers. It always remembers. And on certain quiet nights, when the cold wind blows across the plateau just right, they say you can still hear something drifting in the dark, scratching, humming, tapping 3 short, 1 long, like a countdown that began long before humans existed and will continue long after we're gone. Outpost 09 never checked in again, and the ice keeps its secrets. When the ice finally swallowed Outpost 09, it didn't just erase a station, it claimed a chapter of human curiosity that should never have been written. Antarctica doesn't forget, it doesn't forgive. And the deeper truth is this: we were never alone on that plateau. We just happened to be the ones who heard the countdown. If you want more declassified missions, buried stories, and the horrors humanity was never meant to wake, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share this with someone who thinks they know what lives under the ice. This is Captain Rebel. Stay vigilant. Stay alive. I'll see you in the next debrief.